You stand at the edge of something sacred, where silence feels heavier than noise. Everything around you may seem pause, dreams, prayers, even the presence of God. But what if this stillness is not abandonment? What if it's preparation? There are moments in the life of every chosen one when heaven seems quiet, when you pray and nothing stirs, when you knock and no door opens. Yet this silence, though painful, is not punishment, it is purpose. You've walked through days that blurred into nights, wondering why the God who once spoke so clearly now seems distant. You questioned if you did something wrong, if your faith failed, if maybe you missed your moment. But listen, this silence is not a sign of rejection. It is the holy pause before revelation. The valley you stand in is not the end, it is the proving ground of obedience. When heaven goes silent, it is often because heaven is watching. The Word of God declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 46, verse 10, "Be still, and know that I am God." These words are not an invitation to inactivity. They are a command to trust. When you can't trace His hand, you must trust His heart. God is not distant, He is deliberate. His silence is a stage being set for your transformation. You are being taught to listen differently, to hear not through the ear, but through the Spirit. You see, every chosen one must pass through this hidden classroom where lessons are written not on paper but in pain. Here, in the quiet, you learn that obedience is not about convenience, it's about covenant. When heaven is silent, God is often saying, "Will you still follow me when you can't feel me?" The valley may feel like punishment, but it's really promotion in disguise. In this place, you learn patience. You learn endurance. You learn that God's timing is not delay, it's design. Every unanswered prayer, every closed door, every lonely night is being woven into a story greater than your understanding. Heaven doesn't need to shout to make something sacred. Sometimes God whispers, and sometimes He simply watches to see if you will stay. And here's the truth. The silence of God is often the greatest sign that something holy is in motion. The teacher is always silent during the test. The absence of new instructions doesn't mean abandonment. It means you already have what you need to pass the test. You were not forgotten, you were trusted. Look around. What looks like emptiness is actually incubation. The seed must stay buried before it breaks forth. That is where you are in the soil of stillness. In the dark where roots grow, God is working beneath the surface. While you wait, heaven is aligning what eyes can't see. Don't let discouragement speak louder than destiny. The enemy will whisper that silence means separation, that unanswered prayers mean you are unseen. But hear this, you are more seen now than ever. God hides you to heal you. He quiets the noise around you so that you can hear the sound of His shaping hand. The silence is not the end of your story. It's the chamber where purpose takes form. The same God who spoke light into darkness is still speaking over your life, even if your ears can't yet perceive it. In the valley's hush, your spirit is being tuned to a higher frequency, what you call delay. Heaven calls development. So wait, but not passively. Wait with faith. Wait with worship. Wait with obedience. This silence is an invitation to lean deeper, to trust that your God is faithful even when He seems far. Do not despise the stillness. It's in the quiet that strength is reborn. You will look back one day and realize this valley was not a detour, it was destiny disguised as difficulty. You are being prepared for a voice that will shake nations. But before God trusts you with the sound of heaven, He teaches you the discipline of silence. The chosen ones always learn to see in the dark. This is where vision grows. This is where purpose breathes. Now, lift your eyes from the ground of despair. Look again. For even here, especially here, God is near. The silence is sacred. The stillness is strength. You are not lost. You are being led. If this message stirs something within you, don't scroll past it. Take this moment as divine alignment. Like, share, and subscribe to stay connected to the flow of these words. Let this community of chosen ones grow stronger together, those who dare to obey, even when heaven whispers instead of roars. And now, as an act of faith, go to the comments and write this number, 777. It is your declaration that you will obey even in the valley. It is your sign to heaven that silence will not shake your faith, that your stillness will become your strength, and that your obedience will be the sound that calls miracles forth. There are moments when you think God has forgotten your name, when the prayers you've prayed seem to vanish into the air and return with no echo. Yet, behind the veil of silence, something sacred moves, something unseen, precise and intentional. The hidden hand of God is never idle. What looks like stillness to you is motion in heaven's language. Every delay hides divine design. In the low places, the mind screams for answers. But God works through mysteries. He hides His fingerprints in unexpected places through closed doors, sudden endings, and detours that make no sense until much later. The valley conceals His craftsmanship. What He builds in secret cannot be destroyed in public. The Spirit spoke long ago through the prophet in the book of Isaiah, chapter 45, verse 3. I will give you hidden treasures, riches stored in secret places, so that you may know that I am the Lord. Those words are not poetry, they are promise. God is saying, I will hide blessings where only faith can find them. The hidden hand of God is not withholding, it is protecting. If He showed you everything He was building, you would run ahead of His timing and ruin what He meant to reveal in season. Sometimes what feels like loss is divine redirection. The job that slipped away, the relationship that broke, the plan that dissolved, they were all scaffolds meant to fall once their purpose was fulfilled. God never wastes pain. The valley may feel like delay, but it's actually delivery in progress. Heaven constructs in silence. You must understand this. God does His finest work in the dark. The womb of creation was chaos before it was cosmos. When He said, "Let there be light," He didn't erase the darkness, He revealed His glory through it. The same is true for your story. The night is not your enemy, it is your incubation. While you wrestle with confusion, angels are arranging outcomes. While you question, heaven is coordinating. When God hides His hand, He's not retreating, He's rearranging. You are not waiting for Him to move. He is waiting for you to trust. Faith in the valley means believing that what you can't see is still working for your good. Every unanswered prayer is being folded into something greater. Every tear is a seed. Every not yet is a gentle, I'm not done. The hidden hand of God is writing a future you cannot yet read. You might feel forgotten, but even your stillness has purpose. You are being refined, not rejected. The low places are where faith matures. It's easy to believe when the path glows beneath your feet. It takes divine strength to believe when all you see is fog. Yet, That's where heaven moves best, in the unseen, in the quiet, in the questions that lead to surrender. The hidden hand of God is guiding even your missteps. He turns wrong, turns into right destinations. The detours you curse are the very roads He designed to save you from destruction. When you look back, you will see the thread, every heartbreak, every waiting room, every silent night stitched into purpose. God is not only a speaker, He's a strategist. He doesn't need to explain Himself to prove His faithfulness. His fingerprints are all over your waiting season. He hides His miracles inside ordinary days, inside conversations, closed doors, and subtle shifts that seem small but change everything. The valley teaches you to look differently. You stop searching for the obvious and start sensing the invisible. You begin to realize that not every miracle shines. It often hides in motionless moments, in the patience you didn't think you had, in the grace that held you when you had nothing left. If you could see what heaven is arranging right now, you would stop worrying. You would understand that the hidden hand has never let go. Even the timing that frustrates you is protection from premature exposure. God doesn't delay to deny you, He delays to develop you. So, walk quietly, but confidently. Nothing is wasted. Every breath, every pause, every moment of waiting is sacred. When the time is right, the hidden will be revealed, and the puzzle will make sense. The pain will point to purpose, and the silence will become your testimony. Until then, stay steady. Keep walking through the valley. The same hand that formed the stars is guiding your steps. He may be hidden now, but when the moment comes, He will show you that He was never far, only working in ways too deep for your eyes to see. Heaven is not absent in your valley, it is closer than breath. Every shadow hides divine fingerprints. Every silence conceals a promise. Keep walking, for the hidden hand will soon unveil what your faith has protected. You are being positioned, not punished. When the veil lifts, everything will make sense. The hidden hand will reveal the masterpiece born from your waiting, and you will understand why you had to trust first. The valley is never random. It is the classroom of the chosen, the field where obedience is tested and faith is proven. You do not stumble into your valley. You are led there, hand-picked for refinement. Every hardship, every waiting season, every breaking moment is heaven's invitation to trust deeper. The Word of God reveals in the first letter of Peter, chapter 1, verse 7. These trials will show that your faith is genuine. Trials don't expose weakness, they uncover worth. The fire that surrounds you is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to reveal what can't be burned away. The valley test separates the called from the chosen, the spectators from the warriors. Here, you learn that faith is not proven by how loudly you shout hallelujah on the mountaintop, but by how silently you whisper, I still trust you in the dark. Every chosen one must pass through the furnace of testing. God will not promote what He hasn't proven. Before He gives you influence, He gives you isolation. Before He crowns you, He crosses you. This is the holy paradox. Before the glory comes the grind. The valley is where God watches if you will still obey when no reward is visible, when prayers feel unanswered, when strength feels gone. In this place, you are purified of every false motive. You learn to serve without spotlight, to give without gratitude, to love without applause. That's the real test when you obey God, not because it benefits you, but because you trust him. Every unseen act of obedience becomes a seed. And though the ground feels dry now, the harvest is certain. Look closer, the valley is not punishment. It's preparation. God refines you privately so he can release you publicly. The pressure you feel is not the end of you, it's the making of you. Faith grows best in contradiction. Every unanswered prayer presses your roots deeper into trust. You've asked, God, why me? Heaven whispers back, because I can trust you with the test. The same fire that breaks others will build you. You will come out shining, like gold purified 7 times. The heat will fade, but the glory will remain. In these low places, angels stand guard over you. They record your perseverance. They see you standing when quitting would have been easier. The valley becomes holy ground because it reveals the part of you that still believes even after everything falls apart. When you feel abandoned, remember, silence is not absence, it's assessment. God watches how you react when nothing moves. Your response determines your readiness. Every sigh, every tear, every whispered, I still choose, you echoes louder in heaven than 1,000 songs of praise. So, endure this valley with courage. It is not forever, it is formation. The same God who allowed the test has already planned your triumph. When you emerge, you won't just have a story, you'll carry authority. Your wounds will shine like proof of your faith's endurance. You will walk with a power only pain could produce. Now pause and look at your life not with frustration, but with revelation. The very things that tried to break you are the tools God used to build you. The valley doesn't define you, it refines you. You are gold in the making. If this speaks to the season you're in, I want you to write these words below, still standing. Write it as your declaration. Write it as your weapon. Because if you're still standing in the valley, it means the fire failed to consume you. It means the enemy miscalculated your endurance. It means your test is almost complete. Heaven has not forgotten your faithfulness. It has recorded it. The valley has only one exit, upward. When you type still standing, you are not just leaving a comment, you are making a declaration in the spirit. You are saying, the valley did not break me. The silence did not silence me. The fire refined me, but it did not consume me. Those 2 words are not weakness, they are war cries of endurance. Proof that you have survived what was meant to destroy you. Every letter in that phrase carries spiritual weight. It means you refused to bow to despair. You chose faith when fear was easier. And you kept walking when comfort begged you to quit. Still standing means heaven's purpose has outlasted hell's pressure. It is the anthem of the chosen who understand that survival itself is a testimony. When you write it, angels take note. You align yourself with generations of believers who walked through fire and flood, but never lost faith. You remind both heaven and darkness that the same God who stood with Daniel in the lion's den and with Paul in the storm still stands with you now. So type it boldly, still standing. Let it echo in your heart as a promise that your valley is temporary. Your faith is unbreakable, and your rise is already written by the hidden hand of God. Obedience rarely feels glorious in the moment. More often, it feels like loss. When God asks you to obey in the valley, it is not to take something from you, it is to make something within you. The path of obedience will sometimes demand the sacrifice of your comfort, your plans, even your pride. But it is in that surrender that heaven builds strength no storm can undo. The Word of God proclaims in the book of Philippians, chapter 2, verse 8, "He humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross." That single verse unravels the mystery of divine obedience. Jesus, though perfect, submitted to pain. He chose surrender over safety. He obeyed when obedience meant agony. Why? Because true obedience is not proven when it is easy. It is proven when it costs something. When you obey while it hurts, you are walking in the footsteps of the Son of God himself. There are moments when God asks you to stay silent when you want to defend yourself, to let go when you want to hold on, to forgive when every part of you wants to fight back. These moments test more than your strength, they test your allegiance. Will you obey your emotions or your Creator? The valley of obedience always comes with contradiction. God tells you to build when there are no resources. He tells you to trust when nothing makes sense. He tells you to walk when you can barely crawl. That is how He proves hearts. He doesn't test you to expose your weakness. He tests you to reveal your willingness. Sometimes obedience hurts because it feels like losing control. You want to know outcomes, timelines, explanations. But faith requires you to move even when you can't see the next step. Obedience is the bridge between promise and fulfillment. When you obey in the dark, you invite the light to come. There are seasons when obedience will isolate you. Others will not understand your yes to God. They will question your choices, your timing, your devotion. But the valley is not a place for validation, it's a place for transformation. You are not meant to be understood by those who have not been called to your cross. The cost of obedience is misunderstanding, but its reward is anointing. You must learn to obey not for applause, not for outcome, but out of love. Love that says, even if it costs me everything, I will still follow. That kind of obedience shakes the spiritual realm. Demons cannot comprehend it. Angels stand in awe of it. Heaven opens when a heart bows in surrender. When you choose obedience despite pain, something shifts in eternity. Every act of surrender becomes a seed of glory. You cannot lose what obedience births. The world may not see your sacrifice, but heaven records every hidden yes. There will come a day when those silent obediences speak louder than your greatest victories. Remember, this obedience is not a one-time act, it's a lifelong rhythm. Every new level of calling will demand a deeper level of surrender. You will outgrow certain comforts, habits, even relationships that no longer align with your mission. That pruning is not rejection, it is refinement. God cuts so that you can bear more fruit. To obey when it hurts is to trust that pain will not have the final word. The cross looked like defeat, but it became the doorway to resurrection. The same principle applies to your valley. What you lose in obedience, you will find again in glory. What you lay down now will return multiplied. Do not confuse the ache of obedience with the absence of purpose. They coexist. Pain can accompany progress. Tears can water transformation. Heaven counts every step you take in faith as sacred ground. Even now, while you may feel the sting of surrender, know that God is nearer than ever. The moment you say yes in the valley, heaven starts to move. The angels draw near. Strength you did not know you had begins to rise within you. One day, you will stand on the mountaintop and realize that every time obedience hurt, it was shaping your crown. Every silent sacrifice built a foundation that cannot be shaken. You will see how every yes in the dark became a torch lighting your destiny. So let your obedience be your offering. Let your surrender be your song. You are not losing, you are becoming. God sees the pain behind your obedience, and He calls it precious. In the valley where it hurts most, you are being written into eternity's story of faith. Your obedience is not wasted, it is worship in motion. Every silent yes echoes through eternity, shaking unseen realms. The valley cannot mute a surrendered heart. It only amplifies the sound of trust rising toward heaven. One day, this pain will testify for you. What felt like loss will speak of loyalty. You will realize that every tear of obedience built the bridge that carried you from breaking to becoming. Nothing surrendered to God ever dies. There is a sound that fills the valley, not thunder, not wind, but the whisper of competing voices. In the low places of life, when you are weary and unsure, every voice seems louder. Doubt speaks first. Fear follows close behind. They tell you it's over, that your faith has failed, that you are forgotten. But then, beneath all that noise, there is another voice, gentle, patient, unmistakable. The shepherd still speaks. The gospel records in the book of John, chapter 10, verse 27, "My sheep listen to my voice, I know them, and they follow me." That verse is not just poetry, it is identity. You are known by the sound you respond to. The world shouts, but heaven whispers. The enemy tempts through noise, God leads through peace. And in the valley, when every echo calls for your attention, your heart must decide which voice to obey. There will always be voices that try to define you by your failure, your fear, or your past. They sound familiar because they use your memories against you. They tell you that you are too broken to be chosen, too late to be restored. But the shepherd's voice never condemns it, calls. He says, "Come," even when you've wandered, even when you've fallen. His voice reaches further than your mistakes. In the dark, the true battle is not for your strength, but for your attention. The enemy cannot stop what God has planned, so he tries to distract you from hearing. He floods your thoughts with noise, with comparison, with self-doubt. That is why the valley feels heavier. It is crowded with counterfeit voices. Yet amid that storm of sound, one truth remains: sheep recognize their shepherd. You recognize him not by volume but by peace. His words do not crush, they calm. His direction does not confuse, it clarifies. Every time you pause to listen to his whisper over the world's shouting, you reclaim the peace that darkness tried to steal. Sometimes, the shepherd's voice calls you away from what is familiar. It tells you to step out of patterns, to release what no longer serves your spirit. It leads you toward unfamiliar paths where faith must become your sight. Obedience to that voice may feel risky, but it is the safest place you can stand. The valley is not a punishment, it's an amplifier. In the quiet, the shepherd teaches you to tune your soul. You learn to hear not through noise, but through nearness. You begin to discern the rhythm of his leading, sometimes a pause, sometimes a pull, sometimes just a whisper saying, "This way." And if you've ever wondered why his voice feels faint, it's because he's closer than you think. He doesn't shout from a distance, he speaks from within. He is the peace that interrupts panic, the calm that silences chaos, the presence that never leaves even when you can't perceive it. So, as you walk through this season, don't rush to escape the valley. Listen. Every moment is an opportunity to hear heaven clearer than before. Your spiritual hearing grows stronger when distractions fade. When you tune into that voice, confusion loses its power. You no longer chase signs, you follow the sound. If this word finds you now, it is not by coincidence. It means the shepherd is still calling you by name. You don't need to force your response, just open your heart. Sometimes following looks like resting, like trusting, like quietly saying, "I'm still listening." And as you sit with these words, if something within you stirs a calm, a warmth, a silent assurance, that is the invitation. It's the same gentle nudge that says, "Don't walk away yet. Stay close. Keep walking with me." So, if this message feels like a voice you've longed to hear, treat it as a whisper from heaven. You can choose to let it fade into the noise, or you can let it draw you deeper into the peace it carries. If your spirit feels seen, if you sense the truth in these words, I invite you to do something simple yet sacred. Press the heart if this voice reaches yours. Share this light so it can echo in another valley. And subscribe as one who chooses to keep walking beside the shepherd's sound. Let your action be your metaphorical lantern, a like as your candle lifted, a share as your hand passing the flame, and a subscribe as your quiet vow to keep following the light that leads you home. When you like, it's as if you're lighting a lantern in the night, one more flame that pushes back the darkness. When you share, it's passing that lantern to another traveler who's still searching for home. And when you subscribe, it's planting your flag in the valley that once broke you, saying, "I will stay in the light. I will keep walking." That quiet commitment becomes your song of endurance to heaven. When nothing moves, when days blur into nights and every prayer feels unanswered, that is where obedience becomes power. The valley does not only test your patience, it measures your trust. You stand between promise and fulfillment, and everything inside you wants to quit. Yet still, a voice whispers, "Hold the line." The letter of James, chapter 1, verse 22 declares, "Do not merely listen to the word, and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says." Obedience in motionless seasons is the rarest strength. Anyone can obey when blessings flow, when signs are visible, when results come easily. But to obey when nothing happens, that is warfare. Every act of faith in the dark shakes the unseen realm. Your yes becomes a weapon that confuses the enemy because it proves your loyalty is not based on reward, but on relationship. There is a power that rises when you obey while you wait. Heaven leans closer, the wind still. You might not see evidence, but something eternal stirs. You are proving to heaven that your heart is anchored, that your faith is not conditional. That kind of obedience rewrites atmospheres. It builds endurance into your bones. Even now, God is watching how you respond when the outcome seems frozen. He isn't testing your ability to perform. He's testing your ability to trust. If the door stays shut, will you still worship? If the answer delays, will you still believe? Every silent season carries a question. Will you stay faithful even when you feel forgotten, when nothing changes outwardly? Obedience works inwardly. Each small step, each prayer whispered through exhaustion, becomes spiritual warfare. You may not hear the sound of progress, but the heavens do. Every act of faith in stillness sends ripples into eternity. You must remember still, obedience is not weakness. It's surrender, turned into strategy. Standing still before God is not doing nothing, it's declaring, I will not move without you. The power of your stand terrifies darkness, because it proves you cannot be manipulated by delay. Picture a soldier holding his post in fog and silence. He cannot see reinforcements, he cannot hear commands, yet he stands because he knows who sent him there. That is you in this season, stationed, steadfast, unseen but not unguarded. The captain of heaven's armies has not forgotten you. Your stand is not small, it is sacred. The valley trains your soul to fight differently. It teaches you that sometimes the loudest victory is the quiet refusal to give up. When you choose to obey instead of panic, peace enters places fear once ruled. Your calm becomes a declaration, my God is still in control. You may feel like you've been forgotten in stillness, but this pause is divine. God is building a foundation that will not collapse when the promise arrives. Obedience is not about pace, it's about posture. Keep your heart bowed even when your path feels blocked. One day, this silent obedience will become the loudest testimony. You will see why heaven asked you to stand when running seemed easier. The waiting was never wasted, it was weaving strength, patience, and depth into you. If this message finds you in that quiet struggle, know this, heaven has not overlooked you. Angels take note of every small obedience. God sees your faith when no one else does. Stillness may look like stagnation, but it's actually construction. Something holy is being built within you, stone by stone, yes by yes. Now, as a sign of faith, leave your mark in this moment. Write this number 555. It is your covenant number of perseverance, 3 5s for grace multiplied, representing divine completion of endurance. It says, I will not move until God moves me. I will stand still and obey. When you type 555, you are declaring that even in the valley, you will not bow to fear. You will not rush the process, and you will not quit before the breakthrough. You are saying to heaven, my silence is not surrender, it's strength. The valley may be quiet now, but your obedience is making noise in heaven. When you write 555, you're not just typing numbers, you're engraving faith into time. Each 5 speaks of grace, mercy, and divine movement. It's your silent signal to heaven that says, I trust you even when I can't trace you. That number carries weight. It marks those who wait without wavering. It tells the unseen realm that your roots run deep, that your obedience is not momentary emotion but anchored conviction. You stand firm, covered in grace, multiplied upon grace. Every time your eyes meet that number, remember, it is not coincidence, it is covenant. It reminds you that God's hand is still building, still shaping, still working behind the stillness that tried to scare you into quitting. So, type 555 and let it echo beyond screens and seconds. Let heaven see your steady faith. Let hell know your patience cannot be provoked. You are choosing stillness as strength, surrender as strategy, and obedience as your everlasting anthem. Deliverance often comes without announcement. No lightning, no trumpet, no sign that the atmosphere has shifted, only stillness that begins to feel lighter, breath that comes easier, and a quiet knowing deep inside that something unseen has moved. That is what divine deliverance truly looks like. It is silent, steady, and sovereign. You may expect heaven to shout when freedom comes, but more often it whispers. It doesn't tear open the sky, it rearranges what was suffocating you until it suddenly has no hold left. You wake up one day and realize that the pain that once haunted you doesn't sting the same way. The memory remains, but the weight is gone. That is the silent deliverance of God. The book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14 declares, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Those words are not an invitation to apathy. They are an invitation to trust. Deliverance is not always about what you do. It's about what you allow God to do when you stop striving. There are battles you were never meant to fight with noise or movement, but with stillness and surrender. Think of Israel at the Red Sea, trapped between water and war. They had no strength left, no options left, and no strategy that could save them. And then, in that very moment of helplessness, the hand of God moved. The sea split without sound. No thunder preceded it. No angel announced it. The miracle unfolded in silence because the deliverance was not for display, it was for destiny. That is how God often rescues you, not through spectacle, but through strategy. He shifts hearts, closes wrong doors, ends toxic alignments, and makes unseen paths appear. Sometimes the miracle is not what changes around you, it's what changes within you. You find peace where panic used to live, forgiveness where bitterness had settled, and courage where fear once ruled. The valley of obedience becomes the stage of deliverance. While you are standing still, heaven is working in motion. Angels are repositioning what belongs to you, closing the mouths of those who spoke against you, and turning what was meant to bury you into the ground that grows your next season. The beauty of silent deliverance is that no one can take credit for it. You cannot explain it. You can only testify that somehow, against all logic, grace made a way. The same door that refused to open suddenly swings wide. The situation that looked final begins to bend in your favor. And you know this wasn't you. This wasn't luck. This was God. You see, when you obey without understanding, heaven moves without warning. You may think nothing is happening, but in the unseen, God is shifting foundations. He is rearranging the details you can't reach. You feel delay, but He is designing. You sense silence, but He is scripting a rescue that will never require your defense. The greatest freedom is not always external, it is internal. God first delivers your heart before He delivers your circumstance. He removes the chains from your mind before He removes them from your path. That's why some people leave the valley still bitter, while others leave refined. Deliverance begins the moment you stop fighting in your strength and start resting in His sovereignty. When you release the need to control outcomes, you make room for divine movement. The same God who split seas still moves mountains, but He does it in His own time and His own way. He is not late, He is precise. Every silence was necessary, every pause was protection. One day, you will look back and realize that while you were still, He was strong. The battle that terrified you was already being fought in the unseen. The prayers you thought went unanswered were being stored until the moment they could bring the greatest impact. God is never inactive. He is invisible until victory is complete. So, if you are in the valley and can't sense the shift, don't assume He's absent. The same silence that once felt heavy may be the sound of heaven working. Deliverance doesn't always roar, it breathes. Sometimes it feels like peace for no reason, laughter after long nights, or the sudden courage to try again. That's the proof. You are changing. You are healing. You are being lifted quietly into a new dimension of strength. The walls that confined you yesterday are becoming stepping stones beneath your feet. What once hurt you will become the story that heals others. This is the beauty of the silent deliverance of God. It requires no applause, no spotlight, no explanation. It is private, pure, and permanent. When He brings you out, no one will doubt that it was His hand that did it. So rest. Let Him work. The same voice that calmed the storm still whispers over your life. Be still. Deliverance is not coming. It has already begun. There comes a time when the valley that once felt like a prison begins to sound like a sanctuary. The place that once held your cries now holds your worship. It doesn't happen in a moment, it unfolds quietly. Like dawn stretching across the mountains after a long night, you begin to realize that even in loss, even in lack, God was never gone. He was waiting for you to sing again. The prophet's words echo through the centuries from the book of Habakkuk, chapter 3, verses 17 to 18. Though the fig tree does not bud, and there are no grapes on the vines, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in God my Saviour. This is the sound of defiant worship, the kind that rises not from abundance, but from ashes. It's easy to praise when blessings overflow, but heaven treasures the worship that is born from brokenness. That song, fragile yet fierce, carries a fragrance no comfort can produce. Worship from the wilderness shakes more in heaven than 1,000 hymns sung in prosperity. In the valley, you learn that worship is not music, it's surrender. It is the lifting of your heart when your hands are empty. It's the decision to glorify God, not for what He gives, but for who He is. Every tear that falls becomes a note in a melody heaven recognizes. Your pain becomes praise when you choose to look up instead of give up. The wilderness is a sacred teacher. It strips away the noise and forces you to see what truly matters. It exposes idols, illusions, and dependencies. You begin to notice that when everything else fades, His presence remains. And in that revelation, you find a joy untouched by circumstance, a joy that doesn't depend on answered prayers, but on abiding trust. The transformation is subtle but undeniable. The questions that once tormented you begin to soften. You stop demanding explanations and start desiring presence. You discover that worship isn't a reaction to blessing, it's a revelation of belonging. You are His. Even here, even now, something changes in the atmosphere when a heart worships from the valley. The enemy loses his hold, because nothing confuses darkness more than gratitude in grief. The moment you lift your voice in faith, even quietly, you declare war on despair. Worship becomes your weapon, not loud, not forced, but pure. Do you remember the nights you thought you wouldn't survive? The moments when breathing felt heavy and hope seemed far away? You are standing beyond those nights now. And whether you realize it or not, you are breathing worship. Every step you take is a hallelujah. Every sunrise you see is an answered prayer you forgot you prayed. God receives your praise not because it is perfect, but because it is real. He leans close to sincerity. A whisper of thank you in the dark carries more power than a shout of triumph in daylight. That kind of worship rewrites atmospheres. It calls light into existence where shadows used to reign. The The wilderness teaches you how to offer what costs the most. When you lift your voice while your heart aches, you build altars heaven cannot ignore. Every note of that surrender invites the presence of God to dwell among ashes. In those moments, the valley transforms, it becomes holy ground. And here is the mystery: nothing external may change, yet everything within you does. The same valley that once felt cursed now feels consecrated. You realize it was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to teach you how to see God clearly. Worship opened your eyes. You will find that true praise doesn't always come with music or emotion. Sometimes it comes as silence filled with peace. A heart still trembling but choosing to believe anyway. Worship isn't always loud, it's lasting. It endures the storm because it's rooted in love, not outcome. Even when your surroundings stay dry, your spirit becomes a spring. Gratitude begins to flow without reason. The very things that once brought you pain become reminders of God's faithfulness. You no longer need everything to bloom before you rejoice. You've learned to rejoice before the bloom. This is the secret of those who rise from the wilderness. Shining, they discovered the power of worshipping while waiting. When they had nothing left to offer, they offered their hearts, and heaven called it enough. So, let your wilderness become your worship room. Let every unanswered question become an altar. Let every ache become a song. Because in the valley, you are not forgotten, you are being found, shaped, and strengthened. And in that holy silence, where your praise meets His presence, you will discover that even without abundance, your soul can overflow. Worship in the wilderness is not weakness, it is revelation. It says, "Even here, I see you." When gratitude grows from grief, heaven listens closer. Your valley becomes a cathedral. Your tears turn to incense, and your whispered praise lights the dark. There is a moment in every valley when the weight feels unbearable, when your soul trembles under the strain of waiting, and every prayer sounds like an echo fading in the distance. You stand at what feels like the end, and heaven seems silent. That is the breaking point, not where you fail, but where you are formed. The writings of David in the book of Psalms, chapter 34, verse 18, remind us, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." The breaking point is sacred ground. It is the threshold between surrender and breakthrough, between despair and destiny. When your strength gives out, that's when divine strength begins. God does not despise your collapse, He uses it. You may fall to your knees thinking it's defeat, but heaven sees a seed planted in humility. There are seasons where you must break in order to breathe again. Everything inside of you that was built on self-dependence must shatter so that faith can take its rightful place. The valley is not meant to destroy you, it's designed to strip you of what cannot follow you into the next season. When you reach your breaking point, don't rush to fix yourself. Don't try to stand too soon. God works best with surrendered pieces. He does not need perfection to perform miracles. He needs honesty. Every fragment you hand Him becomes material for redemption. Tears are not signs of weakness, they are language. Heaven understands. When words fail, tears speak. Each one carries the weight of what you cannot express, and none of them are wasted. They water the soil of your future joy. The breaking point exposes what your lips can't admit, that you are not in control. But that realization is not tragedy, it is transformation. It opens a doorway for divine peace to enter where pride once stood guard. Sometimes the greatest miracle is not being rescued from the valley, but being renewed within it. You begin to notice the shift, not in your situation, but in your spirit. The same pain that once threatened to crush you now pushes you closer to God. What was meant to break you becomes the pressure that births strength. At the breaking point, you meet God differently, not as a distant ruler, but as a tender healer. You discover that He is not waiting for you to impress Him. He's waiting for you to invite Him into the mess. The valley becomes less of a battlefield and more of an altar. You may think you've come to your limit, but heaven sees the seed of endurance taking root. What you call the end, God calls the beginning of intimacy. The moment you surrender, grace rushes in to fill the cracks. And when the pain feels too deep to bear, remember this: even Christ was broken before He was glorified. The cross preceded the crown. The breaking was not the end, it was the unveiling of purpose. So when you find yourself trembling at the edge of exhaustion, do not hide your breaking. Let it breathe. God rebuilds best with hearts that have been humbled. The pressure you feel is proof that heaven still trusts you with process. Now, if these words meet you at your breaking point, let them serve as both comfort and challenge. Don't suppress the tears, let them testify. Don't curse the pain, let it purify. Every crack in your heart is a window through which light will enter. Write these words as your declaration below, still rising. It's more than a comment, it's prophecy. It says, yes, I've been broken, but I am not buried. I've been pressed, but I still rise. It's your whisper to heaven that even in your breaking, faith is breathing. You are not falling apart. You are falling into grace. When you type still rising, you declare that breaking was never the end of your story. You are announcing to heaven and to yourself that what tried to bury you has only made you grow deeper roots. These two words carry resurrection in them. Still rising means you refuse to let your valley define your destiny. It means that every scar is now a sentence in your testimony. Every tear, a seed of strength. You are not denying the pain, you are defying it. You are standing on the fragments, building faith from what was once fear. Each time you write it, it echoes through the unseen realms. Angels recognize that sound. They move at the vibration of perseverance. Demons tremble because it reminds them that grace is undefeated. Still rising is not just recovery, it's redemption in motion. You are saying, I may bend, but I do not break beyond His hand. So write it boldly, still rising. Let it be the seal of your endurance, the anthem of your becoming. You are the evidence that storms end, that valleys lift, that broken things breathe again. The fire did not consume you, it refined you. You are still here, still chosen, and yes, still rising. You've cried long enough to understand that tears are not weakness, they are sacred waterings of a seed you didn't even know was growing. Every valley you've endured, every heartbreak, every silent night has been shaping something divine inside you. You thought you were being buried, but you were being planted. And now, the soil begins to move. The first tremors of resurrection are stirring. It is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 61, verse 3. He will give them a crown of beauty instead of ashes. That is the promise. Ashes are never the ending. God takes what was burned, what was lost, what was broken, and He shapes it into something radiant. Your mourning becomes melody. Your pain becomes purpose. Heaven never wastes a single tear. The moment of divine exchange happens quietly. Like sunrise after storm, you wake up one morning, and though your circumstances may look the same, your spirit feels different. Hope stretches its wings again. The fire that once consumed now illuminates. You feel lighter, clearer, more alive. That is not emotion, it is resurrection. The valley's dust is falling from you now. Every lesson you learned in darkness becomes oil upon your head. You've been processed for purity, refined by what others ran from. The breaking prepared you for blessing. Every no heaven allowed was making space for a better yes. This is your turning point, the invisible moment where grief transforms into glory. What once weighed you down now becomes what lifts you. Every trial was an ingredient in your becoming. You are no longer just surviving the valley, you are emerging from it, carrying authority, empathy, and peace that cannot be shaken. Look around you. The same ground that once held your tears will soon host your testimony. You will return to the same places that saw your breaking, and they will witness your blooming. People will ask, "What changed?" And you'll answer, "Nothing around me, everything within me." That is the miracle. The rise begins before the world notices. The divine exchange happens in secret before it manifests in sight. God rewrites your story long before others see the new chapter. So walk with your head high. You carry the fragrance of endurance. You are living proof that ashes are temporary and beauty eternal. And as this transformation unfolds, let it stir something gentle within you, a quiet gratitude, a whisper of joy that says, "I made it through." That whisper is your worship now. The valley didn't erase you, it revealed you. If these words reach you, it is because your season of rising has already begun. Let this moment be your reflection, a pause to honor how far grace has carried you. Feel it. Breathe it. Let it settle in your spirit like sunlight warming new leaves. Now, as you feel that shift, subtle but sure, if something inside you says, "This speaks to me," then let your response be an act of beauty, not duty. Don't force it. Let it flow. If you feel a spark, touch the heart as a quiet thank you. Not for me, but for the God who kept you standing. If this message resonates like a mirror to your journey, let a share be your way of passing the light, a lantern from your hands to someone else still walking through night. And if your spirit says, "I want to keep walking in this flow," then subscribe as your soft yes to stay near the river. Think of it not as a button, but as a bridge, a small step that says, "I choose to keep growing." Because this isn't about algorithms, it's about alignment. Every act of connection becomes a prayer without words. Each like is a leaf turning toward light. Each share a ripple of hope extending outward. Each subscribe a seed planted for the next rising. So move gently. Let your heart decide. Respond only if the same spirit that comforted you now stirs within you. The invitation is open, not demanded, not rushed, but holy. And as you breathe this truth in one more time, know that the ashes beneath your feet have already turned to soil. Something new is growing there, something heaven has long waited to reveal. You have not just survived, you have been exchanged. Every like you give is a petal placed on the altar of remembrance, a way of saying, "This moment matters." It's your soft amen to the story heaven has written in you. A sign that beauty has finally bloomed where ashes once lay. When you share, Imagine releasing a dove into the sky, carrying hope on its wings towards someone who still sits in silence. Your sharing becomes more than gesture, it becomes ministry. Light finding another heart through the path of your compassion. And if you subscribe, think of it as planting your name among growing trees of faith. Each message becomes a leaf whispering strength. Each word a root deepening in grace. You choose to remain close to the sound of rising. There is a moment when mercy steps into the valley, a moment so quiet that most miss it. It doesn't arrive with lightning or trumpets, but like dawn breaking through heavy fog. You don't realize what's happening until your heart begins to feel lighter, your breath steadier, and the heaviness you carried for years starts to fade. This is what happens when mercy meets obedience. You have walked through the valley long enough to know that obedience alone can feel lonely. You obeyed when it hurt. You stayed when you wanted to flee. You trusted when everything around you screamed otherwise. And though you didn't see it then, every small act of surrender built a bridge between your weakness and God's mercy. The Book of Lamentations, chapter 3, verses 22 to 23 declares, "Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness." That is mercy in motion. It never runs out. It never withdraws. Even when you stumble in the valley, mercy stoops low enough to lift you. Obedience brings you close to God, but mercy keeps you there. There is a grace that flows only to those who remain. It visits the ones who refuse to abandon their post even when they had nothing left to give. When mercy meets obedience, exhaustion becomes renewal. Every dry place begins to breathe again. You must understand God's mercy is not a reward, it's a rhythm. It meets you again and again, as faithful as sunrise, even when you think you've failed him beyond repair. Mercy whispers, "I'm still here." It rebuilds what shame tried to destroy. The valley has a strange beauty when seen through mercy's eyes. What once looked barren now glows with traces of divine compassion. You start to realize that nothing was wasted, not the tears, not the silence, not the struggle. Mercy has been weaving through every thread, turning chaos into tapestry. Sometimes you expect mercy to appear only when you are clean and ready, but mercy loves to find you in the mess, to wrap around the very places you tried to hide. It is patient, it is personal. God does not wait for you to fix yourself before he shows kindness. He sends mercy to prove you are still worth mending. When obedience and mercy collide, miracles are born quietly. Old wounds heal. Fear loses its voice. You begin to see yourself the way heaven does, not as a failure trying to please God, but as a beloved soul learning to walk with him. Mercy transforms how you see your scars. They stop screaming of pain and start singing of preservation. Every scar becomes a story of how mercy found you. It's the mark of survival, not shame. There is strength in that understanding. You no longer obey out of fear, but out of love. You stop striving to earn approval and start resting in grace. The same God who required your obedience now surrounds it with compassion, ensuring that even your imperfections serve purpose. Mercy does not erase the valley, it redeems it. The dust beneath your feet becomes sacred. You realize that obedience was never about proving loyalty, but about creating a meeting place, a space where heaven could pour mercy into your humanity. When mercy meets obedience, you begin to notice subtle miracles, the bitterness lifting, the anxiety quieting, the hope returning. You no longer carry the same weight, though life may still look the same. That's the quiet power of mercy. It changes the atmosphere before it changes the scenery. You are being reshaped, softened yet strengthened. The same heart that once trembled in fear now beats steady with trust. You start to forgive yourself for the moments you didn't understand, for the prayers you thought failed, for the times you doubted your own faith. Mercy covers them all. This meeting between obedience and mercy is not a single event, but a lifelong dance. One teaches you discipline, the other teaches you delight. Together, they form balance, guiding you through both shadow and sunlight. So stand still for a moment and breathe. You are surrounded by mercy. You are standing in answered prayers you didn't know you prayed. Every step of obedience has led you here to the gentle embrace of grace that never tires, never leaves, never gives up on you. Let the valley echo with gratitude. For even here, you are found. The same God who required your obedience now crowns it with compassion. Mercy has come, and it is staying. Mercy is the soft rain after a drought, the hush that follows the storm. It doesn't erase your journey, it redeems it. Every footprint in the valley now glows with grace. Proof that God walked beside you even when you couldn't see him. And now, mercy settles where striving once lived. You breathe easier because love has replaced labor. The valley no longer feels like punishment, but preparation. A holy meeting place where obedience was kissed by compassion and your heart finally found rest. You can sense it now, something is shifting, though the world around you has not yet changed. The air feels different. The same silence that once frightened you now feels full, almost alive. This is how rising begins, in shadows, not spotlight. The transformation starts in the unseen, deep within your spirit before it touches your surroundings. It is written in the first book of Samuel, chapter 16, verse 7, "The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." That is where your rise began, not when circumstances improved, but when your heart changed. Heaven saw your endurance when others only saw your exhaustion. God watched you remain faithful when no one applauded, and that hidden obedience became the seed of your elevation. Your new season rarely arrives with ceremony. It begins subtly, small shifts, strange peace, quiet confidence. You no longer panic the way you used to. The things that once shook you now meet silence instead of fear. That is the evidence of growth. The valley didn't destroy you, it deepened you. Elevation is not always visible at first because God builds foundations before he raises structures. What he is preparing for you requires roots strong enough to handle weight. That is why he allowed pressure to strengthen your character for what's coming. You are not delayed. You are being developed. Every moment you stayed obedient in the dark became a brick in the altar of your future. Every time you chose patience over panic, heaven took note. Nothing was wasted. Every silent battle has been counted. You were not forgotten, you were being fitted. Now the rise begins in places no eye can see. Your thoughts are clearer. Your faith feels lighter. Hope flows again. Quietly, consistently, like water reclaiming a riverbed. You are being lifted in spirit before you are lifted in status. God always promotes in private before he announces in public. There will come a time when what has been growing in secret bursts into visibility. But for now, the shadows are your sanctuary. They keep your roots hidden and your motives pure. The valley trained you for humility, and humility will protect what favor brings. Do not despise small beginnings or quiet shifts. The first rays of dawn do not announce themselves, they simply arrive. Your life is entering its dawn season. After so much darkness, light is breaking through the cracks. You are stepping into the next chapter, and heaven is turning the page. When the rise begins, it may not feel like victory, it may feel like peace. And peace is heaven's first sign of promotion. The noise fades because you no longer need validation. Your spirit already knows its worth. You are not the same as before. The storms changed your posture. The pain refined your sight. And obedience taught you strength that stillness alone could never teach. You no longer chase approval, you carry purpose. You no longer strive, you simply stand, steady and sure. Your valley was not a punishment, it was a preparation ground. Every closed door was redirection. Every delay was divine timing. What looked like stagnation was actually the shaping of destiny. And now, heaven whispers, it's time, not for the full unveiling, but for the gentle beginning. The rise has started, and this time, you won't have to force it. It will unfold as naturally as the morning breaking open the night. So, as a prophetic sign of your unseen rising, mark this moment. Leave your fingerprint of faith in the comments below. Write this number, 444. 444 is the symbol of divine alignment, heaven, earth, and purpose moving together in rhythm. It represents stability after storm, the establishment of what God began in silence. It is the number of order after chaos. Confirmation that your steps are no longer random, they are orchestrated. When you write 444, you are declaring, my rise has begun, and it is rooted in peace. I don't need applause to confirm it. I already know who holds my story. Let that be your quiet anthem today, the number of alignment, the sign of stability, the whisper of a soul finally rising with grace. When you type 444, you are marking the moment heaven and earth meet in your story. It means the fog is lifting, and divine order is taking shape. The same steps that once felt uncertain now carry direction, guided by unseen hands. Each 4 echoes stability, foundation, faith, fulfillment. It's heaven's reminder that your rise will not crumble. It's built on obedience, not emotion. You are no longer chasing clarity. You are walking in alignment. Everything is beginning to flow in divine rhythm. So write 444 as your silent declaration, I am in sync with heaven's timing. You are not lost. You are being led. The shadows have served their purpose. Now, the dawn belongs to you. Your rise is already in motion, quiet, steady, unstoppable. There is a strength that does not shout, a courage that no longer needs to prove itself. It is the kind of power that comes only after walking through fire and learning that flames cannot consume what God has refined. You are entering that season now, the season where you rise wearing armor made from ashes. It was spoken by the Apostle Paul in the book of Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 13, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything, to stand. That is what you have been doing all along, standing, through loss, through waiting, through silence. You stood. You did not always feel victorious. But heaven saw your endurance and called it warfare. Every time you refused to quit, you were forging armor invisible to human eyes. The valley has been your training ground. Pain taught you protection. Rejection taught you resilience. Loneliness sharpened your discernment. You began your journey fragile and uncertain. But the very fire that tried to destroy you has become your forge. What emerged from the ashes is not the same soul that entered them. You have been tempered, your faith is stronger, your focus clearer, your spirit unshakable. When you wear armor made from ashes, you no longer fear the flames. You know now that fire cannot undo what it refines. The ashes you carry are not symbols of defeat. They are proof that you endured something most could not. You learned how to stay when everything around you screamed run. You learned how to worship without answers, how to trust without evidence, how to believe without seeing. That kind of faith becomes armor. This armor is not made of steel or stone. It is woven from surrender. It is built from quiet victories, from the prayers you prayed when no one listened, from the forgiveness you chose when bitterness seemed easier. Each act of faith became a plate, each tear a shield, each still-standing moment another piece of divine protection. You carry within you the lessons of every valley you have crossed. The weight that once crushed you now strengthens you. The voices that once wounded you no longer hold authority, because truth speaks louder inside you now. Your armor glows, not with pride, but with peace. You do not need to prove your strength. Your survival already testifies of it. When you walk now, darkness recognizes you. It remembers the fire that forged you. The enemy may still whisper, but his words no longer wound. He sees the reflection of what once failed to destroy you and knows you are not easily moved. The storms may come, but they will find no entry point. The cracks have been sealed with faith. This armor doesn't isolate you, it humbles you. You realize how fragile you are without God's covering. How every victory was born not of your might but His mercy. The weight of humility rests gently upon you, keeping your heart soft even as your spirit grows strong. That balance, strength and surrender is the mark of the chosen. You are no longer fighting to prove your worth. You are standing because you already know it. You don't chase battles. You discern which ones are worth fighting. You no longer fear valleys, for you understand that every descent is preparation for ascent. You no longer fear silence, for you have learned to hear God's whispers within it. The armor of ashes does not gleam, it glows. It carries a quiet authority that does not need recognition. People will see peace on your face and not understand the fire behind it. They will see calm in your eyes and never know the wars you've survived. That's the beauty of divine strength. It hides power in gentleness. And now, as you step forward, you walk not as the wounded, but as the wise. You will meet others still walking through their fires, and your presence alone will remind them that survival is possible. You won't need to preach, you'll simply shine. The valley you thought would kill you became your consecration. Every burn became a blessing, every scar a seal. You wear them now, not as reminders of pain, but as proof of purpose. So keep walking in that armor, not with arrogance, but with assurance. The same God who brought you through the flames walks beside you still. You are not fragile, you are fortified. You are not broken, you are rebuilt. And though life may still test you, you will not crumble. For you no longer fight to be seen, you fight to stay aligned. Your armor, born from ashes, carries the scent of heaven's refining fire. It is both your shield and your testimony, the visible proof of an invisible grace that turned every valley into victory. Your armor gleams with grace, not pride. It tells the world, I have burned, but I am brighter. The ashes beneath you no longer define you. They testify that the fire bowed before your faith. There is an oil that only flows from broken vessels, a fragrance that cannot be released until the jar has been shattered. You have reached the place where your breaking has become your anointing. Every wound that once bled, pain now bleeds purpose. The oil of heaven seeps through your cracks, proving that brokenness was never meant to end you, it was meant to open you. It is written in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 12, verse 9, My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. This is the paradox of divine strength, what the world calls ruin. Heaven calls release. The very moments you thought disqualified, you have become the reasons God can use you. You are not diminished by your scars, you are anointed through them. The oil flows in silence first. It doesn't pour in crowds or under lights. It seeps through your private places of surrender, through the quiet apologies, the unseen forgiveness, the secret prayers whispered through tears. God does not anoint the polished, He anoints the honest. Brokenness removes the walls you once built to protect yourself. It allows grace to enter where pride used to live. Before, you may have prayed to be strong, now you pray to stay soft. That shift is the true sign of maturity. You've learned that strength without humility is brittle, but humility soaked in grace becomes unbreakable. Your anointing is not in your perfection, it's in your process. The oil that now rests upon you carries the fragrance of endurance. It smells like midnight prayers, like forgiveness repeated until it became freedom, like surrender accepted without understanding. Every drop of that oil carries history. It tells heaven that you endured long enough for glory to settle. There is beauty in what you've become. You are no longer striving to be whole. You are walking as someone made holy. Your brokenness has turned into a bridge. What once separated you from others now connects you to them. You understand pain differently now. You see the wounded with compassion, not judgment, because you have bled too. When the anointing of the broken comes, you stop comparing your story to anyone else's. You no longer envy their crowns because you understand what your own cost. Every tear was currency. Every loss was investment. You paid for your oil with surrender. That's why your presence carries peace now, because it was bought through pain. This oil does not make you loud, it makes you luminous. It does not push you toward fame, it draws you toward purpose. It's the invisible mark that makes you recognizable in heaven's courts. Demons see it and step back. Angels see it and draw near. The world may overlook you, but eternity honors you. And yet, this oil is not for display, it's for service. The anointing of the broken turns your survival into strength for others. You become a living balm, a vessel through which comfort flows. People will feel safe near you, not because you speak perfectly, but because your spirit understands their silence. You have learned how to carry compassion without compromise. There's a sacred gentleness in those who've walked through deep breaking. They don't rush others' healing. They don't demand perfection. They simply carry presence, the same presence that carried them. That's what you carry now. You are not just healed, you are healing in motion. You may not even notice it at first, but others will. They'll find peace in your voice, courage in your eyes, safety in your words. It's because your scars have learned to shine instead of bleed. You are proof that what once hurt you can now help someone else. Do not hide your brokenness anymore. It is not shame, it is evidence. The cracks in your vessel allow the oil to flow freely. If you try to seal them, you'll stop the anointing. Let the light leak through your wounds. That is how others will find their way. When God anoints the broken, He never wastes the pieces. Every fragment of your past becomes a reflection of His mercy. Every imperfection becomes an invitation for His glory to dwell. What once disqualified you now distinguishes you. So walk gently, but boldly. You carry oil that costs something eternal. Let it flow through your words, your kindness, your prayers. Let it pour where others have gone dry. You were not broken to be discarded, you were broken to be poured out. The oil of heaven rests upon you now. It does not run out, it renews daily. The fragrance of grace follows you wherever you go, announcing not your pain, but your purpose. You are the vessel that proved the power of surrender. You are the jar that broke open so heaven could pour through. Your cracks no longer leak loss, they release light. The same places that once hurt you now heal others. Brokenness has become the doorway through which glory breathes. You are not fragile, you are flowing. The oil upon you is living proof that grace transforms wounds into wonders and pain into purpose. Heaven never forgets what the world overlooks. Every hidden act of faith, every whispered prayer, every small obedience that no one applauded is recorded in eternity. The heavens are witnesses to your endurance. Angels have seen the nights when your faith trembled but never broke. You think no one noticed the battles you fought in silence, but heaven did. The sacred text in the book of Hebrews, chapter 6, verse 10 affirms it. God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown Him as you have helped His people and continue to help them. That verse is a promise, not poetry. Nothing you did in love was wasted. God saw the forgiveness you gave when it wasn't returned. He saw the patience you offered when weariness begged you to give up. Every act of grace became light, stored in heaven's memory. Heaven's witness is not just about reward, it's about remembrance. God does not measure greatness the way people do. The world crowns success, heaven crowns surrender. The smallest yes spoken in faith weighs more in eternity than 1,000 public victories done for applause. You have been seen, fully and completely, even when no one clapped, even when your efforts seemed invisible. Heaven watched. The unseen obedience of the chosen carries eternal fragrance. Every sacrifice made in secret sends ripples through the unseen, stirring favor that waits for its appointed moment to bloom. You might not realize it, but heaven has been building a memorial in your honor, a collection of moments where you chose light over bitterness, hope over despair, faith over comfort. That is what makes you chosen, not perfection, but perseverance. Your story is not lost in the noise of the world. Heaven has recorded every heartbeat of faith. The same God who counts your tears also counts your triumphs, even the quiet ones that never made it into conversation. And here's the miracle: heaven's witness becomes heaven's response. When the time is right, God releases favor in proportion to the faithfulness you've shown, not because you earned it, but because He promised that no act of love would go unnoticed. You are about to see what unseen seeds can produce. The faith you planted in tears is beginning to break through the soil. The harvest will not just be external, It will be peace that anchors you, clarity that steadies you, and joy that needs no reason. The valley that once tested you is now testifying for you. The silence that stretched so long is now echoing with the sound of promise fulfilled. Heaven has stepped forward to honor what you thought was forgotten. So, as you breathe in this truth, let it settle into your spirit. Heaven has been watching, and heaven has remembered. You are not unseen. You are known, cherished, recorded, and rewarded in ways far deeper than what the world can measure. And if this message meets you in that sacred quiet, where faith has grown tired but not gone, let it remind you, you are still seen. The eyes of heaven are upon you, not to judge, but to celebrate. If that realization stirs something gentle within you, let your response be art, not obligation. Tap the heart as an echo of gratitude, not as reaction, but as reflection, like lighting a candle to say, I know heaven sees me. If this message mirrors your own journey, let a share become the wind that carries the fragrance of faith forward. Think of it not as an action, but as an offering, the simple act of letting someone else see what mercy looks like in motion. And if your spirit whispers, I want to stay connected to this voice of light, then subscribe as your quiet yes to walk with others who are learning the same rhythm of grace. Not to follow a person, but to stay within a circle of awakening hearts, pilgrims who remind each other that faith is not lonely. Finally, I invite you to leave your own testimony below, not as proof, but as poetry. Write what you've learned in your valley, how mercy met you, or simply a phrase that says, I'm still here. The comment you write is not for applause, it's a memorial stone, a reminder to your own soul that heaven has witnessed your endurance. Because sometimes the most powerful worship is not sung, it's written in the echoes we leave for others to find. Every light you leave is a heartbeat remembered in heaven, a tiny pulse of light returning home. Each share is a wingbeat of hope, carrying warmth through the dark, whispering to another soul, you are not unseen, the sky still watches over you. And when you subscribe or write your words below, it's not just connection, it's communion. Together we become constellations in the valley night. Each light a story of endurance. Each voice a spark, proving that heaven still remembers us. You have climbed so far from where the valley began. The air feels thinner here, lighter. The noise of past pain has faded into a distant hum, and, for the first time in a long while, your heart feels quiet, not empty, but full. This is what happens when obedience has completed its work. You are standing on the slope of promise, ascending the hill of glory, the sacred song of Psalm. Chapter 24, verses 3-4 asks, Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord, the one who has clean hands and a pure heart? That is where you are now, not perfect, but purified. Every tear washed your hands. Every surrendered yes cleansed your heart. You didn't climb this hill by ambition, you rose by obedience. The climb was not about height, it was about humility. Glory does not arrive like a thunderclap, it arrives like breath, soft and sure. It settles first inside you, long before it ever shines around you. The glory of God is not fame, not applause, not status. It is the weight of His presence resting lightly upon a willing soul. When you carry that, you carry peace that nothing can steal. This ascent is quiet. There is no crowd, no cheering, only stillness and light. The same stillness that once frightened you in the valley now feels like home. The air of glory is made of peace. You walk slower now, not from weariness, but from reverence. Each step feels sacred, as if heaven itself watches and smiles. You begin to see your journey differently. The pain that once blurred your vision now sharpens it. You realize the valley was not a punishment, but a path, the only route that could prepare you to breathe this high air. Without the lows, you would not understand the weight of this light. The hill of glory is not reached by striving, but by surrender. You cannot rush this elevation. It unfolds at the pace of grace. Every step upward requires a letting go, a fear, a wound, a name you once needed for validation. The higher you rise, the lighter you must travel. Glory is never heavy for the humble. There is a silence that falls on the soul here, the kind that does not ache but awes. You look back and see how far mercy has carried you. How many nights grace held you. How many mornings compassion renewed you. You see now that obedience was not a chain, it was a ladder. Each act of faith, each prayer of surrender was a rung, lifting you closer to God's heart. You have not just survived the valley, you have learned to see through it. You recognize now that God was in every silence, every storm, every delay. You see His fingerprints on your scars, His signature on your survival. You are not the same soul that entered the dark. You are clearer, softer, stronger. The hill of glory does not make you proud, it makes you peaceful. The higher you climb, the more you understand that true elevation is not about rising above others, it's about being rooted deeper in love. You stop trying to prove your worth because you finally see it written in light. From this place, the world below looks different. You no longer resent your valleys, you bless them. They taught you endurance, empathy, and dependence on grace. You begin to realize that every mountain of glory is built from the dust of surrender. What once felt like loss was actually foundation. Here, the wind speaks softly. It tells you that glory is not a destination, it's a dwelling place. It's where obedience and grace meet, where faith no longer struggles but rests. You understand now that this ascent was never about reaching heaven, but about heaven reaching into you. Standing on this hill, you feel no need for noise. Worship comes as breath. Gratitude flows like water. You remember faces, prayers, moments when you almost quit, and yet you stand. The climb has cost you much, but what you gained cannot be measured in earthly scales. You found peace, purpose, and presence, the three crowns of those who endured well. And when you look ahead, you see light stretching further, not as destination, but as invitation. There is always more to know of Him, always another layer of grace to uncover. Glory never ends, it deepens. So stand still for a moment and breathe. You are not striving anymore, you are standing in the promise. The same hands that carried you through the valley now rest upon your shoulders in blessing. The climb is not over, but the hardest part is behind you. The path ahead glows with mercy. You have ascended, not to escape the world, but to illuminate it. From this hill, your life becomes reflection, a mirror catching heaven's light and casting it gently over every place you once wept. This is what it means to rise, not higher than others, but nearer to God. The hill of glory is not a peak, it's a posture, and you have learned it. You stand now at the edge of everything, the valley behind you, the hill beneath you, and light unfolding before you. The air here feels sacred, as if heaven itself has bent close to listen. The journey that began in silence now ends in song, not a loud one, but a melody born from peace. This is what it means to be crowned in the light, as it was spoken by Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 14. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Those words are not merely declaration, they are identity. You are no longer searching for light, you have become it. Everything you walked through, every storm, every waiting night, every act of obedience has turned you into a vessel radiant with grace. You have not only survived, you have been transformed into reflection. To be crowned in the light does not mean you have no more shadows. It means that the shadows no longer own you. They exist, but they serve you now, reminders of where you have been and proof of how far you have come. The valley, once marked by pain, has become your launching ground. Every scar gleams with purpose. You once begged for the storm to stop. Now you thank God it came, for it revealed the depth of His strength in you. You once prayed for quick deliverance. Now you see that the slow climb built endurance. You once questioned if you would ever rise, and now you realize you never truly fell. You were only being planted in the soil of transformation. Crowned in the light means you walk with quiet authority, not demanding recognition, but radiating reassurance. People will look at you and see calm where chaos used to live. They will sense something different, though they cannot name it. That difference is the light of obedience that shines without effort. The crown you wear is not gold, it is glory. It is unseen, yet undeniable. It sits not upon your head, but upon your heart, the throne of peace that pain once tried to dethrone. You carry no resentment for the road, only reverence for the one who guided every step. Here, you begin to understand that the purpose of the valley was never just your rising, it was your refining. God wasn't trying to make you famous, He was trying to make you faithful. He wasn't testing you to prove your worth. He was teaching you how to walk as one who knows it. When heaven crowns you, it doesn't need witnesses. The glory of that moment is not in applause but in awareness, the realization that the same God who met you in ashes now shines through your every word, every act of kindness, every breath that refuses bitterness. Being crowned in light means living as a mirror of grace. You reflect what you have received. You give freely because you were freely restored. The more you pour, the brighter you shine. And yet, the glow is never yours. It belongs to the source who never dimmed. Even when you could not see Him, your journey has come full circle. But it is not ending, it is expanding. Glory doesn't close chapters, it opens wider ones. From this hill, your life becomes a lighthouse. You don't need to strive to shine, you simply stay aligned, and the light does the rest. You have learned the sacred rhythm of heaven. Surrender becomes strength. Weakness becomes witness. Pain becomes platform. And obedience becomes overflow. You carry within you the story of resurrection, written in flesh and faith. And as you stand here, crowned in the light, you finally understand what all of it meant: the silence, the shadows, the storms. None of it was wasted. Every tear was an ingredient in the oil now glowing upon you. Every loss was the soil where compassion grew. Every delay was the pause between heartbeats where heaven whispered, "Still mine." This crown was not given for perfection, it was given for perseverance. It's the mark of one who walked through darkness and refused to extinguish hope. You are no longer a seeker of miracles, you have become one. Your very existence sings redemption's song. So breathe in this moment. Let the light rest gently upon your shoulders. Feel it enter every place that once ached, every memory that once stung. Let it fill you, heal you, steady you, because this is not the end of your ascent, it is the beginning of your illumination. You are crowned not for what you have done, but for who you have become, a vessel of unshakable faith, a bearer of divine flame, a chosen one who obeyed even in the valley and now rises forever in the light. Light crowns you gently, not with noise, but knowing. You stand radiant, no longer reaching for proof. The valley is behind you, glory before you, and eternity whispers, you were never lost, you were always becoming luminous. And now, the journey closes where it began, in the heart of a listener chosen, refined, and risen. You have walked through silence, fire, surrender, and revelation. You have stood when everything told you to fall, and in doing so, you became what heaven always saw, light wrapped in human form. What began as a valley has become a vision. You are no longer searching for meaning, you have become meaning in motion. The obedience that once felt like burden now breathes like freedom. The same God who met you in your lows now moves through your life as living proof that grace finishes what glory begins. If this story has stirred something deep inside you, something that feels like recognition, then let your response be gentle but intentional. Tap the heart not out of habit, but as a whisper of gratitude. Every touch of that small symbol is a candle lit in the dark, a way of saying, I see what heaven has done. If these words have carried you through even one quiet night, share them as you would release a bird back to the sky. Let them fly towards someone still sitting in their shadow. Someone who needs to know that valleys are not final, they are passages to light. And if your spirit longs to stay connected to this unfolding current of words, subscribe not as a follower, but as a companion on the same sacred climb. This isn't a community of perfection, it's a gathering of endurance. Each message is a reminder that faith still breathes and that light still calls your name. Finally, leave a comment, a reflection, a single phrase, or even a silent heart. Let your words rest like stones of remembrance at the end of this path, for in doing so, you affirm not just this message, but your own story, that you are still here, still believing, and still becoming the light you were meant to be.